The girl had always wanted to move to another country and live there alone. She saved up enough money from her job as a waitress to make her dream come true. So she bought a one-way ticket and left for another country. When she arrived, she checked into a small but cozy Airbnb that was located close to the beach. The walls were white, just like the sand. And when she walked outside, the blue of the ocean made her eyes sparkle with joy. For the first time in her life, she felt completely alone, but also free. As soon as the sun went down, however, everything changed. When she turned on the lights, strange shadows flickered across the walls. Then she heard chains dragging metal moans. She tried to ignore it, but then the sound got closer. Then she saw it. A man was dragging himself closer and closer. She screamed and ran into the bathroom, locked herself inside, and that's where she stayed until sunrise. She didn't want to believe what she had seen. Maybe it was just some homeless guy who stumbled into the house by mistake. Still, she didn't leave the Airbnb that day. Instead, she ordered food and watched TV until sunset. Then she heard those dreadful chains again. She peeked through the window, but it was too dark to see anything. She spent the night listening to the chains and crying. The next morning, she called the owner of the Airbnb and told them about the intruder. The owner apologized and offered her another accommodation, but she refused. She didn't want to stay there anymore, so she packed her things and left. Later that day, she found a new place to stay. It was an old Victorian house, but the price was reasonable and the reviews were great. Plus, it was located in the city center. As soon as she stepped inside, she felt at home. The interior was beautifully decorated with antiques. There were also fresh flowers on the table and a handwritten welcome note. Then she noticed something weird. Every single mirror in the house was covered with a cloth. The host explained that they were antique mirrors, and that's why. But something about their explanation sounded fake. Still, she decided to enjoy the rest of her vacation. One afternoon, she decided to go shopping. She came back hours later with bags of clothes and souvenirs. As she opened the front door, she heard a loud crash. Startled, she dropped her bags and turned around. Standing in the middle of the room was a little girl in a Victorian nightgown. The child looked at her for a moment, then vanished into thin air. The girl had never seen a ghost before, so she wasn't scared. Instead, she thought that it was amazing. She continued unpacking her things while the ghost girl walked around her, touching the furniture. Suddenly, the ghost approached her and pointed at the full-length mirror in the corner. It was the only mirror that wasn't covered with a cloth. Hesitantly, she followed the ghost girl over there and stared into the mirror. That's when she saw her reflection. But it wasn't her own reflection. Instead, it was the reflection of the little girl. She was wearing the same nightgown that the ghost had been wearing. Horrified, the girl screamed and stumbled backward. She fell to the ground and hit her head. The last thing she remembered was the little girl's ghost standing over her and pointing at the mirror. When she woke up, she was lying on a couch. A woman with kind eyes was sitting next to her. "Are you okay? You hit your head pretty hard," she asked. The girl nodded, still confused. "Where am I?" The woman smiled and said, "You're in my house. I'm your Airbnb host. Are you feeling better now?" The girl looked around and realized that she was back in the Victorian house. She asked if she had perhaps imagined the events from before, but the host shook her head. "I found you lying on the floor. You must have passed out from hitting your head." Relieved, the girl told her host about the ghost girl. "Oh, that's just Elsie. She's been haunting this house for decades. Sometimes she even tries to possess people." The girl gasped. "I think she wanted to possess me." "Maybe," the host said cryptically. "But why? Do you know why Elsie haunts this house?" The girl shook her head. "Well, her parents died in a fire, and she was the only survivor. She couldn't handle the grief, so she took her own life in that very house. The girl shuddered. So you think she wanted to possess me because she needed help moving on? It's possible. But don't worry. She can't hurt you anymore. Not unless you let her in. Confused, the girl asked what she meant by that. The host simply smiled mysteriously and said, "You'll understand soon enough." Days passed, and the girl began to feel Elsie's presence more and more. Every time she approached the mirror, she could see Elsie's ghost standing behind her. One night, she heard chains dragging moans. Just like in the previous Airbnb, she peeked out the window, but it was too dark to see anything. Then suddenly, the lights went out. As she stood there in the darkness, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She screamed, then ran to the mirror. In the dim moonlight, she saw Elsie's ghost standing right behind her. "Elsie," she called out, "can you hear me?" The ghost nodded slowly. "Do you want to talk to me?" The ghost nodded again. "Why are you haunting this house?" the girl asked. "I don't know," Elsie whispered. "I'm sorry. I just want to go home." The girl knew exactly what she had to do. "Do you want me to help you?" Elsie's ghost nodded vigorously. Over the next few days, the girl and the ghost girl became friends. The girl would talk to Elsie's ghost every night and listened intently as Elsie shared stories about her childhood. She learned about her family, her hobbies, and her dreams. Meanwhile, Elsie seemed happier than she had ever been. She would often thank her new friend for helping her. But how could she help her? The girl didn't know. But she was determined to find a way. One afternoon, the girl was going through Elsie's belongings when she found a diary. The leather cover was worn, and the pages were filled with beautiful handwriting. As she read through the entries, she realized that Elsie wasn't just a little girl. She was a smart and sensitive young woman who loved poetry and painting. She wrote about her hopes for the future and her dreams of traveling the world. But most of all, she wrote about her parents, how much she loved them and how much she missed them. The girl understood that Elsie didn't want to be possessed. She just wanted someone to listen to her story and remember who she was. She knew that the only way to help Elsie move on was to tell her story to the world. So she started writing a book about Elsie's life. She interviewed the locals, researched old documents, and collected as many stories and pictures of Elsie as she could find. A year passed, and the book was finally finished. It was a beautiful story that made readers cry and smile. It became an instant bestseller and was soon translated into dozens of languages. It even won several awards. The girl was so happy that she had finally helped Elsie move on. One night, she sat down in front of the mirror and waited for Elsie's ghost to appear. "Elsie, are you here?" she called out. "I did it," she whispered. "I told your story to the world." Elsie appeared behind her, smiling. "Thank you," she whispered. "Now I can finally go home." With that, she vanished. The girl watched the mirror, hoping to see her one last time, but it was no use. Elsie was gone. The girl was sad that her friend was gone, but also happy that she was finally at peace. From that day on, the girl continued writing books. She traveled the world, meeting interesting people and listening to their stories. And although she never saw Elsie again, she felt her presence with her every step of the way.